because we need to.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. Oh, I need to do a mic test. I haven't done one. Oh, and I typed voice. Well done.
And a YouTube link.
And a YouTube link. Yeah, one sec. Where are we? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Let's go to Twitter's. All right, it's on Threads. Just like you. My tweet is out. On recorder. All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
No, I had to stop. So hold on.
Yeah, stop.
Just keep recording. It's fine. No, it's fine.
All right.
I had to switch mics. All right, now recording. 3, 2, 1, clap. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast. Oh man, I just read the wrong thing. I'm getting very distracted today. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 335 for December 8th, 2023. Hey everyone, Gina Rubino here, joining Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central podcast. This week we're going to have some exclusive news on Windows 12, quote, end quote. We don't actually know if it's going to be Windows 12. In fact, it might not be Windows 12 anymore because there's been a pretty big change in leadership. I don't know if you guys heard, Panos Panay is no longer at Microsoft. And so there may be a switcheroo going on with some of that titling, but that's not the only news. Zach has learned some details about this new operating system, or I should say update to it, milestone, what they used to call these things, including, not a surprise, the focus on AI. We'll also talk about some Windows 10 news. They are extending serviceability for it for a little bit longer, but there's a little bit of a catch for companies. If they want it, you got to pay up. Some Windows 11 insider news. There also is probably some other stories we're forgetting, but we put this podcast together pretty quickly. And of course, we'll also go through the thing of the week. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Hanging in there. Busy week for me. A lot of CES preparation going on. So for those who don't remember, CES, Consumer Electronics Show, kicks off January 9th, I think it is, through the 12th or something like that in Las Vegas. So we tend to see a lot of companies, PC companies, announcing things this year. You know, the buzz is going to be around Intel 14th gen. Well, they're not really 14th gen. We'll call them Meteor Lake because they're basically the Core and Core Ultra processors that were announced a while ago. So we're going to see all new laptops with those, which means I am seeing those laptops already. So I'll just say there's a lot of cool stuff coming.
I'm excited.
I think, yeah, what I've been, teasing for the last couple of months with 2024 is going to be a big year for PC. I still definitely stand by which I mean Intel's latest processors, NPUs, and all new devices, including Qualcomm's forthcoming processor, which should be a game changer. And then you got the news here with Windows 12 and AI. All this is going to come together to create what the industry are calling AI PCs, AI laptops. And they're using that jargon on purpose because and I know this is a topic that people, I still see it on Twitter. So people will be, I saw someone react to your story to me. They're like, yawn, boring, don't
Yeah.
care. And like, listen, like I seen the stuff they're going to be doing with AI, and it's a big deal. It really is a big deal for the industry. This is the first time uh, you want to see this kind of really advanced technology. I've seen concepts. It's still very new, of course, and there's a lot more coming than there is, obviously, that's going to be released initially. But I'm seeing concepts from companies of plans that they would like to do with this tech. And I told these people, I was just like, listen, if you use your computer for more than porn and gaming, this is a big deal. Like, if you use your computers for like productivity, or you work at a large company that has a lot of policies and a lot of structure to it, AI is going to be really game changing. As someone who manages a site and manages employees, I can tell you there's a lot to it that I have to do, and I can't remember it all. And so I spend a lot of my time going back and retracing my steps about how to do stuff. Now with AI, that potential is going to be kind of out the door. I also got to see, and I won't say this isn't like a specific thing that's being announced necessarily, um, but there's been talk recently of localized chatbots, like in custom versions of ChatGPT, basically, where you can kind of make your own. And so the question is like, why would you want to do that? Well, I saw an instantation of it being deployed in a real environment, and this was basically for a massive law firm that has hundreds of lawyers across the country. And what they're using it for is to write. If you're a paralegal, like your job is to basically research law cases and like summarize that stuff up so the lawyer has it all at their hands, right? So the lawyer can work on formulating arguments and strategy. So that's the paralegal's job. And so you can use ChatGPT for this, but ChatGPT is not geared towards what is commonly referred to as legalese. Have you ever seen law documents before? You've seen there's a very specific structure and language that they use in writing those documents. So what they're doing is training these systems on this company's hardware. I'll just say that. And they can now go through and summarize or create legal documents that ChatGPT just couldn't do. And it could do it in a way that is understandable and usable by paralegals and lawyers. And there are different versions of this. There's like one that runs on a massive computer with multiple GPUs, and that gives you like the full document and history and all that kind of stuff. But they can also run it locally on computers because of the forthcoming technologies. Even without the NPU, we've discussed this before. If a computer doesn't have an NPU, the system can fall back to the GPU or even CPU. And in the future, you're going to see, and this will tie into what Zach will talk about with Windows 12 or the next version of Windows. The system will be able to smartly pick the appropriate hardware that you have for that AI task. So it could switch between NPUs and GPUs and CPUs depending on what needs to be done and what is available at that time to the system, which is going to be really kind of cool. But this stuff could also just run locally on a laptop. It's a more abbreviated version because it doesn't have quite the computing power. But that's now I realize if you're not in a law firm, you're like rolling your eyes. I can tell you though, paralegals and lawyers would be gushing over this stuff. I can imagine people writing patents would love this kind of stuff. Anything that requires that kind of specific industry jargon and language is really going to kind of benefit from this kind of technology. But getting off a little topic here, so we'll just segue this into the Windows forthcoming version and its AI.
Yeah.
Zach, so can you tell us what's new there and what's happening?
Yeah, so there's quite a few elements to this story. We should start with the roadmap stuff because I think this sort of lays the foundation for what to expect in the year ahead. So, previously under Panos Panay, last year, over a year ago at this point, I had reported that Microsoft had moved to a new development cycle for Windows. Instead of doing a feature update annually based on a new version of the Windows platform, Microsoft was going to go back to a more traditional 3-year development cycle for major versions of the Windows platform, and supplementing the years where there isn't a major release with moment updates. And that's essentially what we've seen happen with version 22H2 going into version 23H2. We've seen all through this year moment updates. Windows has been serviced via moments updates. That's how Microsoft has delivered new features to end users. And that was a system that sort of came together under Panos Panay. That's how he decided he wanted to update Windows. And then 3 years, as I said, 3 years after Windows 11 would have been 2024. That's when the next major version of the Windows platform would have been coming. And that's most likely what would have been Windows 12 under Panos Panay's leadership. Panos Panay's gone now, and we've got new leaders in, and they're shaking things up, as is expected with new leadership. Often with new leadership comes a new vision as to how the sausage is made, so to speak. What should the product be? And so changes are happening to the roadmap. The first change I hear is taking place is the moment updates thing is more or less dead. They're winding it down, starting with Hudson Valley, which is the codename for the next major release of Windows in 2024. So we're expecting at least one more moment update for Windows 11, the current version of Windows 11. So that should be coming in February, March. And I think the main thing that's going to bring is all the EEA stuff that was recently announced in regards to interoperability with the search pane and widgets board and whatnot. But that's coming in February, March, and then the next sort of big release will be Hudson Valley. So what is Hudson Valley? It's the next major version of the Windows client. It will be shipping on a new version of the Windows platform, codenamed Germanium. And Microsoft, as a result of winding down moment updates, is going to go back to releasing annual feature updates with new versions of the Windows platform. So this is very similar to what they did in the Windows 10 days, where there was, in the Windows 10 days, there were technically 2 major releases of Windows a year, which was way too much. I think we can all agree. And then they sort of settled down towards the end with 1 major update a year before leapfrogging them with 1 major, then not, and then 1 major again. To my knowledge, I think they're going to go back to annual. That said, that is not fixed. That could still change. It may not be every 12 months on the dot. It may be every 16 months, something like that. But the idea is every year there will be a new version of the Windows platform that gets shipped to Windows users. And so what is the difference between a major platform release and a not major platform release? Well, it's mainly to do with how the OS is updated. With Windows 11 version 23H2, that feature update wasn't a major release. It was based on the same platform release that version 22H2 was based on. And so all the features and changes that were delivered via version 23H2 were delivered as an enablement package, essentially a cumulative update that just unpacks and services the existing OS install. With major platform releases, such as the upcoming Hudson Valley stuff and Germanium, the OS essentially has to reinstall itself. The OS gets reinstalled as the update is applied because it's a new version of Windows. And so from a technical perspective, this is a new release of the Windows OS, but from a branding perspective, it may not be. And this is sort of leads us into our next topic here, is will this be Windows 12? I think not anymore. Under Panos Panay, it was almost certainly going to be Windows 12. But there was a big, bold vision for this release. It had a brand new tablet UX, lots of changes to the interface with things like the system trailer at the top of the screen. They had lots of ambitions for not just AI, but the OS in general. A lot of that, to my knowledge, has been scaled back now that Panos Panay's out the door. They've sort of scoped the release to this needs to be an AI-focused release, plus some minor quality of life improvements here and there. But they don't want to rock the boat too much because, if the new Windows bosses are looking at this next release going, oh, this could be a Windows 8 situation for us, and that would not look good to the boss, Satya Nadella. So they don't want to rock the boat too much, and as a result of that, I don't think we're going to see drastic UX changes with the Hudson Valley release now. And then, that sort of leads into why not Windows 12. There's a couple of reasons why the new leadership team are unsure about calling it Windows 12. To clarify this, it's not been confirmed. They've not been locked in on a branding decision yet, so it could still be Windows 12. But I hear the conversations they're having internally are very much in favor of it not being Windows 12. The primary one being fragmentation of the user base. Right now, Windows 11 has around 400 million users. Windows 10 has around 1 billion. Introducing a Windows 12 just further fragments that user base. And the new leadership team would rather everybody be on the same version of Windows. And so, shipping Windows 12 would be detrimental to that goal of getting everyone back on the same release. So if this is just another Windows 11 update, Windows 11 users kind of technically can't refuse it. They eventually get upgraded to it when their current version of Windows 11 runs out of support. And then all Windows 10 users over time will move on to Windows 11 anyway as their PCs die and get old and stuff. So that's the primary reason why I'm hearing it won't be Windows 12. So that means it will most likely be a Windows 11 2024 update or Windows 11 AI update or whatever they call it. Windows 11.1, I'd love them to call it maybe a point release. I don't know. But from a technical perspective, from an under-the-hood perspective, it is a new version of Windows. It's just when it comes to branding, it may not be presented as such. So that leads us nicely into what's actually coming with Hudson Valley, right? This is the next major release, as we've sort of talked about, and as Microsoft itself has teased, the next generation of Windows is going to be something that's fueled by AI. And unsurprisingly, yeah, Hudson Valley, as far as I'm aware, is pretty much a next generation AI OS, and they're building lots and lots of really interesting experiences into it, some of which will be powered by next gen NPU hardware, some of which will be able to run on CPUs, some of which will be cloud based. I don't know which falls into what category, so don't ask me, but there will be limitations on certain hardware and there won't be on others, so just keep that in mind as we discuss the features. So the first one I'm hearing that's in the works is something called an advanced copilot, which is able to constantly work in the background to enhance search, jumpstart projects or workflows, understand context, and a lot more. What this essentially means is, right now Copilot's Copilot, but in the next version of Windows, Copilot almost becomes autopilot in a way that it's always working in the background. It's always understanding what you're doing, even if you're not invoking it. And so it becomes smarter and it can learn you as a result. And what that enables is things like an enhanced or much more capable Windows search. One feature I hear they're working on is something similar to a user history or timeline feature, where you could go into this place and type into Copilot and be like, hey, just FY24 earnings, and every scenario where FY24 earnings was on screen all throughout the past day or the past few days, Windows Copilot can invoke that and go, hey, so FY24 earnings was on screen at this point yesterday, or it was on screen at this point 2 days ago, and you can sort of rewind time and go back and see what was happening or what was open at that point, and then jump back into that document or presentation or website, whatever it may be. Another example of this is natural language in Windows Search. So the example I put in the article here is you could basically just ask Copilot, hey, do you remember that document that Bob sent me on WhatsApp? Yeah, can you find that for me? And Copilot would be like, oh yeah, of course, here it is. If you try to do that today in Windows Search, Windows Search, what are you talking about? I have no idea who Bob is or WhatsApp. But Copilot will be able to understand the context. It'll be able to remember. It creates memories of things that you're doing on your desktop. It's like a person would, essentially, taking notes in a meeting, for example. And so you can ask your assistant, hey, what was I doing yesterday at 4 p.m.? And it'll be like, hey, here's what was currently on screen yesterday at 4 p.m. That's that's to me the most mind-boggling thing that they're working on for this Copilot stuff. The other stuff that I don't actually necessarily put in the article that I've heard is coming is things like, you could be looking at a web page and you could open Copilot and just be like, hey, can you remove the background in this image? You don't need to be specific in what you're asking for. Just, can you remove the background in this image? And Windows will sort of be smart enough to go, okay, so there's an image on screen here in the web browser. I'll grab that. What apps do we have installed? Oh, Paint can remove background. We'll open Paint and we'll do it in Paint. And you don't even need to request Paint. It could just do it for you. That is also just an insane example that I've been told is something that they're working on for the next generation of Copilot. And that works beyond just Edge as well. All of this works outside of the browser. It's basically just analyzing the desktop constantly, whether it be WhatsApp, Edge, Telegram, OneNote, Spotify. Ideally, Copilot will be able to sort of remember all of this using memories and all this other stuff. And then obviously this will tie into the shell as well. So things like if you're reading an email and the email mentions creating a wedding brochure or something, and it has sort of requirements for that invitation, you'll be able to go into a place like the start menu, and there'll already be a prompt there saying, hey, we just saw you had an email there saying you need to get started making a brochure for a wedding. Designer's here, and we've already got 90% of it complete based on the criteria that was sent to you in the email. Would you like to basically just finalize it? More stuff like that. So the idea is Copilot becomes autopilot and is working for you in the background. It may not always be helpful, but in a lot of the cases, I think it will be. And it really is centered around productivity. The idea is it reduces clicks, it reduces search times, it brings things to you quicker as a result of the enhanced AI stuff. Dan, what do you think of any of that?
So what you were talking about with search is often referred to as like natural language processing, NLP. Yeah. And the idea there is, of course, as what you were talking about, context. We already see this, right? This is a core feature of ChatGPT where you can engage a conversation with it. And you can write things pretty sloppily in ChatGPT or even Bing Copilot, and it gets what you're trying to say. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but like you type in like a long, goofy sentence, and it just pulls out the key things like, all right, I'm searching on these terms, this and that, and then pulls it all together. That's the difference here when you apply that to searching your computer for stuff. Right now, it's more of a Boolean search. It's looking for specific keywords that you're typing in, preferably in the order that they naturally occur. Otherwise, it could throw off the match. And if you have commas in there or hyphens, it could also throw things off, although that's gotten a little bit better. So this idea of like making things more natural to find just by using language the way you and I both speak and write, more importantly, the way we speak, right? I think is going to be a real game changer, especially since I've never gone a day, I don't think, without people complaining about Windows search, just talking about how it's not that great and how it's like way better on Mac OS. Mac OS isn't using this technology though, but Microsoft will be. And so I think this is really going to sort of, again, I guess I've made that joke, if you use your computer for more than porn and gaming. Although I suppose if you're a porn connoisseur and you have a lot, this would also be helpful for you. Actually, it'll be kind of interesting if it can search like images and video, right? Because that could be also interesting instead of remembering the name of the video or specific keywords of that video. But yeah, go on.
I think it will be able to, at the very least, it'll be able to do images, because another example that I was told will be possible is you could type something like dinosaur into the Copilot and into the timeline interface, and it would bring up every instance where not just the word dinosaur was on screen, but if an image of a dinosaur or something that resembles a dinosaur was on the screen, it would bring that up as well. So I guess that ties into, it's not OCR. What's the what's the image version of OCR? Or maybe it is
I know what you're talking.
Yeah,
it's an image identification. Like you see it now, specifically Google Photos and even OneDrive, where you type in like dog, and it'll go through all your photos and find everything that looks like a dog. So so that's a very similar. So that's cool too. Someone's right. I don't think these features, while interesting, will appeal to regular users. So I think you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
This is not going to be something like, here's this feature, and like it's not. You're going to have an operating system that is simply smarter and does things more proactively. Like I was talking to some industry people about this stuff in AI, and I told them, and this wasn't AI related, but it was such a simple change that we saw across phones and operating systems that was a real game changer. And it wasn't some announced massive feature, people go talking at Thanksgiving dinner with their family. Did you see this? It's when you get a text message or an email or any kind of notification kind of thing, and it has the time and date in it, and it becomes clickable so that it can open up your calendar and populate it automatically. That simple thing for anyone who has a lot of appointments is so massive, especially if you're on your phone, because you'll be on your phone, you'll get like an email and you'll see a date, and then you either have to copy or paste it, or then you have to go open your calendar, start to create a new appointment. You have to now remember the dates, the time, which, by the way, now invokes human error, because you can easily get information wrong here, especially if it's the wrong time zone. And it automatically, then you have to go back and forth. It's just now you just click it and it goes like, oh, and even like on Android, it goes, which calendar do you want to open up? You have multiple ones, right? It even lets you choose. And then it goes there and auto-populates. That's not some like banner feature that Google advertises or Microsoft does, but it's such a simple thing that just makes life easier. And improving search on Windows is a big deal. Being able to, and what you were kind of alluding to before, and this is where the real change is going to be, proactively help you do stuff, whether as a creator or working in business. And let's not forget here, one of the main uses of Windows PCs is business and enterprise. Like in terms of like, do consumers care? I kind of don't care if consumers care, because that's not necessarily the core market for Microsoft nor Windows. And if you're thinking like a business person, that's the market you really want to go after. I can tell you, talking with a lot of companies, they are very interested in this because it does improve productivity. It does make life easier. It does reduce friction for getting work done. If you're using your computer just to browse the web, check an email, and watch Netflix, sure. AI might not be that important to you. But then again, a lot of stuff we talk about in this podcast would not be interested to you either. So I don't really necessarily get the argument, but Microsoft is right here and pursuing this stuff because their corner market is business and enterprise, and that's the core use of Windows these days. And it's going to make a really big deal for productivity, and that's what companies want to hear. And that's what companies are willing to pay for, I should mention as well, which is even more important. So I think stuff is all great. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. Even if it's not great at first, that's the beauty of AI, is it gets trained and it improves the more you use it, versus some person in the back end like, oh, I got to do the V1.2 update. Let me get all the things and keywords and type in things and make it easier. It's no longer going to do that. The system will train itself via these AI models, and that's super impressive. I think people are really sort of underestimating how big this stuff is going to be. It's going to take a couple years to like really flesh itself out, but we've all like if you play video games and you watch movies about things in the future, this is kind of where computers are, and where they need to go. Because right now, say you work on video editing, or you're doing a presentation, it's a little it's a bit much to ask these people to also be experts in Windows PCs. We take it for granted how to operate these things. We know about how processors work and why you might want to switch between balance mode and performance mode and what the trade-offs there would be, right? Oh, you would generate more heat, you would decrease the battery. Like there's all these other things. A lot of people don't know or care about that stuff. And frankly, it's not their job to know or care about that stuff. It's their job to get their job done, whatever that may be. Now, I've said this before too, with even creating PowerPoint slides. Like if my job is not, as editor chief of Windows Central, my job is not to create PowerPoint slides, right? That is not in my job description. Do I have to absolutely create those things, or Google Slides in this case? Yeah. Do I need to have that special talent, though, and spend resources and mental energy being the guy that refines his slides so they're ideal and perfect and have all the relevant information? That seems like an incredible waste of my time. It's one reason why I haven't done video much, because I'm not going to go out and learn video and be a video editor. I'm way too busy for that stuff. Why should I? Is the real question. Why can't I just shoot video and have AI go through and stitch together a video for me? And I can tell you right now, our company is actually using that for converting long form videos to short term things on the site. So we're already using this kind of technology. And that's where it's really going to be a benefit. You don't no longer need to be an expert at putting slides together, know how to do everything in images and creating images and where to get those images, or loading video in there, or going into editing video or some kind of multimedia presentation. Before, you used to have to list that on your resume. Do you have experience in this stuff? Do you have experience with that? Yeah. Pretty soon, that's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be, what do you know? And what can you do for this company via your knowledge of the actual topic versus all the peripheral stuff that you know and how to present that to people. And I think that's really massive. But yeah.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's what I think.
I fully agree. I would also the most fascinating thing about this to me is, so I think Microsoft's goal is, and I don't know if this will be the way it is on day one with Hudson Valley, or if this is a more long-term goal over time. But I think the idea is Copilot, instead of you going to find things to achieve goals, Copilot just brings it to you. And in some instances, can even do most of the work for you. So instead of, right now, if you wanted to edit a photo, you'd be like, okay, here's photo. Now I need to go to start. I need to open Photoshop or your image editor of choice. Open it, put the image into the program, go to the tool in the program to do the edit I want to make. Okay, now I can export the image. There's the edit. There's the image. That's how workflows are today. But I think what Microsoft sort of wants to get to, the end goal is, you can just ask Copilot to bring it all to you and do it. And obviously this will rely on plugins and stuff and third-party developers supporting Copilot plugins so the Copilot can actually interact with the app. But yeah, you'd be able to just be like, hey, Copilot, can you remove the background from this image, or can you blur the background from this image? And Copilot can be like, yeah, okay, sure, here's the image. Here's Photoshop, I'll load that up. I'll use the plugin stuff to be able to make those changes. Oh, and spit it out on the desktop. There you go, I've made that change for you. That, I think, is the goal. And the idea is eventually the modal for operating systems would just be you type and ask it to do stuff for you. And no longer do we have to manipulate things with a mouse and whatnot. And obviously this will more or less sort of rely more on voice, I imagine. Obviously up until now we've had this conversation before. The idea of talking to a computer with your voice is kind of unnatural to people. I think that changes when the AI you're talking to is able to respond like a human and understand you like a human. So you can make ums and ers and change your mind mid-sentence, and it can still sort of understand what you're saying. Because right now it's very rehearsed, isn't it? You're talking to Siri or Cortana in the past and Alexa. You sort of have to rehearse your sentence, because if you get it wrong, the assistant will be like, I have no idea what you're telling me. But with
And that's another great example of, sorry, just to interrupt for a sec, of how this technology can be used.
Yeah.
So right now we're doing a live podcast, but we're also recording this. You could absolutely run on this podcast through AI. And anytime you and I do ums and and do, which are natural space fillers used linguistically to tell the other listener, hey, I'm still talking, I'm formulating my thought, hold it for a second. That's why we do those ums. So but no one wants to hear that, right? What makes a good speaker is someone who doesn't do that. AI can absolutely go through, pull those things out, and then shape the sound waves so that it doesn't sound like it was edited all for you. And now you no longer need a professional editor to do that. There's going to be so many instances of where this technology is going to be useful. But again, I said, if you're not spending your time working behind a computer and managing a lot of information, this might not be as interesting. But I can tell you, every PC company I talk to and other software companies are all going really hard on this because their companies that they work with, those CEOs and those chief technology officers, CTOs, are all asking for this because they really want it, because it does make life easier. I was giving them an example of my job when we got stuff that goes wrong on our site. Like other companies, we have to file a ticket with IT. If you work for any place that has an IT department, you know about filing tickets, you know what a nightmare it is. Specifically, all right, which department do I got to contact? What's the ticket number? Or the ticket category? And I have to go basically look it up every time. If I got an email for someone, hey, this thing is broken, and the email can see, oh, there's a problem here, and proactively go, sounds like you need to file a ticket, click here, and I just click and it goes to the system and already populates it with the information I need. So all I got to do is verify and click send. Do you know how much time that saves me? Now, if you don't do that stuff, yeah, you don't care. I can tell you, I care. I can tell you a lot of companies care about that stuff. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was pretty much done with my thought anyway. We should move on to some of the other AI stuff I'm hearing in the works. It's not just Copilot related. There are some other sort of AI features they're building into the OS. There's a feature I've heard called Super Resolution, which I don't have the specifics on, but how I understand it is...
this is out already.
Is it?
So there's a version of this that's done with NVIDIA GPUs.
Okay.
Where it upscales, if a video is less than 720p, I think it is, it uses your GPU to upscale it. Yeah. And it rolled out in Microsoft Edge. So Edge supports this. And if you have a support for an NVIDIA GPU, it can use that to enhance video. And then it can also enhance regular video to also be sharper and better looking.
Right, so what I guess this will be is that, but relying on NPU hardware instead. And it also, I've heard, will apply to video games. So it'll be able to do that in real time as you're playing a video game. So it can more or less just upscale the resolution, I guess, of the game. So, which I guess will be handy on, say, an ARM device, because let's be honest, the upcoming Windows and ARM devices, they may not be the most powerful gaming PCs. I think they'll be certainly more powerful than the current Ultrabooks we've got, but I don't know. It'll be a similar story as to what's happening on Apple Silicon. And so being able to rely on the NPU to maybe upscale those games will be beneficial, perhaps. So that's a feature that I'm hearing is in the works. There's also an enhanced version of live captions coming, which I hear is phenomenal. What it can do is it can translate in real time different languages. And so you could be on a call with somebody on Skype or Teams or whatever, any app of your choice, WhatsApp, and you can enable live captions in Windows. And if the person you're talking to is speaking a different language, live captions will do the heavy lifting and translate for you. And so you'll be able to, well, I mean, assuming they're using Windows on the other end, they can have live captions enabled as well. And you can both speak in your native language and understand each other in real time, which is fantastic. I know that this isn't new tech. I think Skype's been able to do this for a little while, but building it into the OS natively so that it works not just in one app but across the entire system, it would work in a video. So if you're watching a foreign video, for example, that may not have subtitles, there you go, you just put live captions on, it will translate in real time to whatever language you speak, which is pretty awesome.
Microsoft Teams you can actually then hold meetings with someone in Japan in real time, right?
And then another AI thing is AI powered wallpapers. Now we've sort of seen this already. I think this accidentally leaked in
the Pixel has it.
Yeah, Pixel has it. It's not a new thing, but this idea that you'll be able to give Windows an image and go, hey, make this a 3D image, and then it becomes your desktop, and it sort of has a slight parallax effect to it. Nice small quality of life thing. So that's the AI stuff I'm hearing so far. There may be more stuff, and we should also say there may be less stuff. Just because they're working on this doesn't mean it will be ready in time for Hudson Valley. Some things may get cut. However, I think the advanced Copilot stuff is more or less the meat and potatoes of the next release. And if that gets cut, then there isn't a next release. So I'm pretty confident the advanced Copilot stuff is coming. But there are some non-AI stuff that I'm hearing is in the works as well, starting with a dedicated sort of creator tab or hub or place in the start menu and file explorer, which essentially congregates all of Microsoft's 365 services that let you create things. And this could also tie into the AI stuff where it gives you like recommended projects to dive into based on context that the AI has seen. But the idea is there'll be like a dedicated area where it just has a bunch of different sort of buttons to click into, say, creating a Word doc or creating a designer template or creating a PowerPoint presentation or creating a video in Clipchamp, stuff like that. And this is all to do with the new Windows leadership team's obsession with upsell, because the new Windows leadership team are the Windows and Web Experiences team. Keyword there, Web Experiences. They're the guys in charge of Bing, Edge, and all the web experiences, which includes Clipchamp. And I don't know if it includes Office, but Office Online is certainly part of it. So yeah, you're going to see a lot more Microsoft upsell in the next version of Windows, I think, and that may be good news to some people. It's probably going to be bad news for most people. I don't know if you'll be able to turn it off, but it's coming, and so be prepared for it. There's also some more improvements to Energy Saver. We talked last week about how they're rebranding Battery Saver to Energy Saver. I'm hearing that there's more to that, such as the ability to charge your device, or for Windows to identify when the power is pulling from the wall is green. And so that's most useful for, I guess, laptops, right? So it'd be like, hey, I'm not going to charge right now because in 20 minutes I can tell that the grid's going to be green and I'll start charging from then onwards. All to do with reducing your carbon footprint and stuff, which is kind of nice. And then there is just other general quality of life improvements that I've not heard specifically about that I'm told will just be sort of coming. So the usual stuff that you get with new versions of Windows is always minor improvements here and there. I would like to see a complete dark mode. I've not heard if it will be coming. They had started working on it for Hudson Valley, and I say that because they had also started working on it for Windows 11, and it was never finalized for Windows 11. I don't know if it will be finalized for Hudson Valley. I think with Panos Panay it would have been, but since he's gone, I don't know if it's a priority for the new team currently. So we'll have to wait and see regarding that. Now, regarding the interface itself, if you remember, we were talking about this idea of a new interface with the system tray along the top and whatnot. And I said under Panos Panay, that was a venture they were seriously considering. But I just don't think it's happening with the new leadership team. I'd like to be wrong. At the very least, I'd like to see it as an option. But to my knowledge, the new team just don't want to rock the boat. They really just want to play it safe here. They basically just want to make an OS that's AI enhanced. And the current Windows 11 interface is fine. It's inoffensive. It's not too dissimilar from Windows 10, which is the main... Microsoft wants to get people off Windows 10, and doing what they were planning with Windows 12 and the system tray along the top of stuff, I think would have been too drastic of a change for Windows 10 users to be comfortable with. Windows 10 users could barely handle moving the start button from the left to the middle. Are you moving the system tray to the top of the screen as well? There's no way they're going to be able to handle that. So I think for now that vision for the sort of Windows desktop is on hold. I don't know if it's cancelled. I think it could happen in the future. But I don't think it's going to happen in time for 2024. And then that leads us to Core PC. Where does Core PC fit in? We've talked about this before. Core PC is essentially an evolution or continuation of the Core OS vision, where the OS is state separated. It has faster updates, faster resets, can be recovered using FFU file types, etc., etc. We've talked about it before. If you don't know what Core PC is, look it up. We've talked about it countless times. But the thing that I would report on originally was that Microsoft were looking at maybe shipping Hudson Valley on it, or at least on some hardware. To my knowledge, that's probably not going to happen now. I'm not 100% certain about that, but it seems that for now, the Core PC effort is primarily on the Chrome OS specific thing that they're building internally, which we will talk about at some point in the future. It's unrelated to Hudson Valley, which is why we're not talking about it today. But there is an effort to build a version of Windows on Core PC, or Win 3 or Win 4, whatever you want to call it. There's a number of names for it internally. But right now, to my knowledge, that effort is primarily focused at being a Chrome OS competitor, being a web-first OS. And so that's a thing we can talk about another day. But for now, there's, to my knowledge, no plan to ship Hudson Valley on Core PC in 2024. That could change later in 2024 or 2025. To my knowledge, the Core PC platform is done. I don't think it's still in development. I think it serves its purpose at this point. I just don't think Microsoft is ready to start, because the problem with Core PC is it doesn't ship as an update. It has to be adopted by people buying new hardware. And with that comes a lot of changes to how Windows is supported, because like I said, you can't just install it with an ISO. It uses recovery methods like .ffu. It's much more like an iPad or an Android tablet in that regard. And so there's lots that needs to change, especially on the OEM side as well. The OEMs will have to flash Windows differently. There's just a lot of differences to it. And so maybe Microsoft just isn't ready to start rolling that out widely yet. So overall, those are the things I'm hearing for Hudson Valley. It is shaping up to be a big release, and there is a hardware tie-in, which we will talk about at a later date. There is actually one part of this, and I was talking to Dan about this earlier. There was one element of the story that I cut at the last minute because I just didn't believe it was true, which ties to hardware. And then Dan showed me earlier this week a picture of the thing that I cut. I was like, oh no, I should have kept it in. Right. I should have kept it in. I'm so annoyed. So I can't talk about it now because technically we're under embargo for this one thing. But there's a hardware aspect, and we will talk about that probably in the new year, I imagine. Especially with the Surface stuff, I'm hearing some things about the next Surface Pro and the Surface laptop, and those are exciting pieces of hardware. I'm very excited to talk about those.
Very cool. Well, looking forward to that. That's for sure. I think the super video resolution stuff that you mentioned at the beginning there was, I think that's gonna be really cool because right now you need like an RTX GPU to make that happen, but since now it can rely on NPUs, this basically works in Edge. For any video content that's being played, it can then be improved and upscaled upon, and even improve like regular video, which is just a small, especially if you're streaming video. This is going to be helpful. This kind of technology, at least it should be. But this ability to real time use AI to improve things in media, like one other use case I know is with with audio. So like you and I right now are using Skype back and forth. Well, let's say, we didn't have nice microphones and your microphone was just not that good. It was a little tinny and all that. AI can in real time improve the audio I hear coming from your microphone, which makes everything, way better, and vice versa. And then of course it could also filter out my microphone, like I'm using right now with NVIDIA Broadcast, any background noise and all that. So there's a lot of these small things, but it's not going to be like one feature in the operating system. It's not going to be like a Cortana kind of situation. You're just going to see all these small, cool improvements. I brought up the Microsoft Paint with the ability now to cut out the background. And you can just do it with one click, right? And it's just a new icon, and you just click it, and it just, with your image, just removes the background. And then that you can take that background and put it on something else with the layer support. Like that's an instance of machine learning and like AI. And it's like, it's subtle, it's small. No one's like writing like banner headlines about it. I can tell you, someone who uses Paint all the time, it's amazing. It's so cool to be able to do that. Or to use image generation, while you're in Paint, right? It's right there now. You can just click it, generate an image, and then put it into your thing you're working on. So I think you're just going to see a lot of these small features. It's going to be hard to summarize it all. Everybody's going to find that one thing that works for them. But it's going to be, a big year for this kind of technology, at least to kick it off. The ability to have NPUs and all these devices is going to be massive because it opens up things like an operating system and new software, right? I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, this is like the early internet where, it's like, all right, we're online, you can dial up, now what, right? And no one was even thinking about that on a phone at the time. And it's like, all right, so what do you do with it now on the phone? I used to show people all the time, like, I got internet on my phone. This was like 2005. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I can like watch the Weather Channel. It's like the live weather updates. That was a part of Sprint, right? They would have that kind of feature. But like no one foresaw, Yelp and Google Maps and all this other stuff that eventually came out of what we would be using our phones for. In fact, the entire, design of the phone changed. Or went from clamshell or candy bar type big thick ones. And then we went through this phase with how thin and small can we make phones, which is culminated with the Razr, Motorola Razr. And it was even parodied in what's that movie there, the Zoolander, when he had a little tiny phone in his hands. Like that's where the industry was. And then all of a sudden it changed, and all of a sudden now we're getting slab phones, all screen, no keyboard, and this idea like having the internet with you all the time. And then the phones just scaled up and they got so big, we created a new word for it called a phablet, which was terrible. And now even phablets, by today's standards are tiny.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you how like no one predicts where this stuff is going, and I think that's going to be the same thing here
Yeah.
with all this
And
technology. So
I fully believe that we will see the UI, the desktop interface as a concept evolve as AI is introduced to it. Again, I don't think this will be with Hudson Valley in 2024. I think this is a journey in regards to the UX morphing to be more AI centric. But like as you were saying, but back when you was in Windows 3.1, you weren't going, oh, I wish this had a start button and this, that, and the other. The idea of the taskbar and stuff wasn't something people understood as a concept until it was there in front of you. So we can't really envision this idea of an AI powered OS or an AI centric UX where what I'm thinking is essentially it's just the OS is a desktop and there's just a text box. It's just type what you want to do, and that's one application of it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a UI designer, but this will evolve. It will evolve. Windows as we know it today, it's not going to be Windows in 10-15 years as AI becomes more complex and advanced. The idea of UI may not even be necessary anymore. This is really far out thinking, but yeah, this is just the start. Hudson Valley really is the beginning of it next year. And this isn't...
That is the goal.
Microsoft isn't ahead here, I don't think. Like, Google just announced Gemini, and they're planning to build AI into Android natively, not just on Pixel phones, but all Android phones. Apple is rumored to be delivering whatever AI stuff it's working on to the iPhone and iPad next year as well. 2024 does seem to be this inflection point where all the big tech brands and with all the big OS platforms are going to put AI into the platform. And Microsoft isn't ahead here. I don't think they're behind. I think they're just doing what everybody else is doing. And so this isn't going to be out of the blue to see Microsoft do this. And because a lot of the replies and responses to this story were very negative. Like, I don't want any of this. I want to disable all of it. This and that. Every platform's going to be doing it. It's not just Windows. So buckle up or prepare to be a hermit.
Yeah, I find those negative comments ridiculous. And like I said, they're not even the core market or the target market for this stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Again, consumers and non-business people, it's like they're important, obviously, but they're not the sole driving factor behind technology. And again, going back to the smartphone thing, it wasn't consumers that drove smartphones until the iPhone started coming out.
Yeah.
Up until that point, it was 100% enterprise driven. If you had a BlackBerry, you probably had a job, like a serious job, or you're a drug dealer.
Yeah.
But it was really rare to see just a normal human who didn't, I just work at Ben & Jerry's, have a BlackBerry because it was unnecessary. Plus, you had to sign up for like a business plan.
You had
it was
to
more
pay for BBM. Monthly fee.
So yeah, but so all that technology was driven by enterprise first, and then it came down to the consumer market. And the same thing with computers. I mean, computers were like, if you saw IBM in the 60s and 70s, as a consumer, you'd be like, what the hell do I need a computer for someday? And it's like, because people don't think about that stuff. Maybe it's not their job to, but this technology eventually all trickles down to daily things in your life. I mean, I want it for things like Netflix and Amazon and Google TV and all that stuff and it already kind of does this, right, with its own algorithms where it learns what you like to watch and then gives you new content based on what you like. And those systems are getting smarter and smarter. We take it for granted, but I don't hear anyone going, oh, I disable all that stuff on Netflix. I don't want it to know my viewing history. It's like, for discovery purposes, a lot of us do want it to know our viewing history. How much time I spend watching it, how often do I go back? Do I want to be reminded? Do I want to be like an important thing you and I talk about all the time is that show Upload on Amazon. The seasons aren't like, oh, it's fall time, the new season of Upload. It's not like TV anymore. It's just like, all right, the new season's coming out. Well, unless like you have systems reminding you, if you watch the previous two seasons, you'd want that system to be like, hey, there's a new version, there's a new season of Upload out to watch, So all this kind of technology, I think it's going to be super important because the world we live in is so complicated with information. And, this is that paradox of choice, right? Where choice is great, but sometimes you have too much choice. Anybody who's browsed through Netflix knows this. When you turn it on, like, let's watch a movie. And then you spend a half hour just clicking through things and trying to find stuff and watching trailers. Like, who wants to do that? Wouldn't you rather, instead of use that half hour for browsing, it just like, there's 4 movies here. You're probably going to really like all those, right? So I think all this stuff is Going to be really, really amazing and transformative, but it'll take some time to get there.
The last thing real quick I just want to mention is the sort of the timeline for all this stuff, because unlike previous versions of Windows, the way this is going to roll out is kind of different. To most of us, it won't matter. It will, to the end user, it will roll out in the usual time, and that is September, October 2024, holiday 2024, more or less. They're aiming at the second half. But in regards to sort of insider information, those of us who are curious how the sausage is made, to my knowledge, the platform release, Germanium, will be finalized in April. An RTM build or of some kind is expected to be reached around then, and then that'll be handed off to OEMs very quickly. But for the first time ever, I hear that OEMs will actually begin shipping PCs with Germanium preloaded as soon as June 2024. That's before Hudson Valley as a client release is finalized. That's not supposed to be finalized until August internally, and then it begins rolling out as an update in September or October. The reason for this, I hear, primarily is to do with Qualcomm, and this sort of ties into how this next release really is sort of been built from the ground up with ARM as a focus. Microsoft has been working closely with ARM. I'm sure they've been working closely with all their partners, but they've been working closely with Qualcomm as well this time around. And this next release really is sort of ARM. I won't say ARM-centric, but it's enhanced with ARM. You're going to want to use an X Elite laptop in 2024 if you want to utilize all of the features Microsoft are building out for the next version of Windows. That's probably not fair to say. I'm sure Intel 14th Gen is technically also there, but from a performance perspective, to my knowledge, the Qualcomm laptops will beat the Intel ones in regards to NPU performance at the very least. And so this next release, X Elite hardware requires Germanium to function. It doesn't work with nickel, which is what Windows 11 is currently based on. So for OEMs to start shipping hardware in June onwards, it needs to be running the newer Windows platform release. And so that hardware will be rolling out starting June. And so as the platform will be generally availability starting June, except it won't be rolling out as an OTA. It will just be on preloaded hardware that you buy in stores. So for example, let's say the Surface Pro 10 comes with the Snapdragon X Elite chip inside, maybe a custom version. When you buy that'll be running a newer version of Windows than what everybody else is running, except it won't have any of the new AI features until the fall. That's, to my knowledge, how it's going to work. So Hudson Valley, as with all the AI stuff and whatnot, rolls out in September, October. If you buy a Surface Pro 10 or any next-gen ARM hardware, it will be running the platform release that's newer, but it won't be getting the features until later in the year. For everybody else, you'll be running Nickel until September, October next year, where Germanium and Hudson Valley roll out as an update, and then you'll be doing a big upgrade from Nickel to the new release. And so that is the timing for things as I understand it. If that changes, I'll be sure to let you know. But I think that's everything to do with Windows 12 for now. That leads us nicely into Windows 10, believe it or not. So to this week, Microsoft, to the surprise of I think nobody, announced the Extended Support Update Program for Windows 10. Now, for those who don't know what the ESU is, this is a program Microsoft launches for very popular versions of Windows when people refuse to get off of it. Primarily for businesses in the past. They did one for Windows XP, and they did one for Windows 7, and what it essentially does is it's a program that enterprises can subscribe to. You have to pay for it as an enterprise, but Microsoft will continue updating those versions of Windows if you pay for it for 3 additional years beyond the end of support date for that operating system. They did it for Windows XP, they did it for Windows 7, and now they've announced they're going to do it for Windows 10, which means if you're an enterprise, you can subscribe to updates beyond 2025 for 3 more years, up to 2028. Good news for enterprises, but the difference is, and the reason why we're talking about this is for the first time ever, Microsoft is opening that program up to end users, individuals, consumers. So if you're a person at home and you run Windows 10 Home on your personal computer and 2025 rolls around and you think your PC is still perfectly fine and you don't want to upgrade to Windows 11, you can say, hey, Microsoft, I want to pay you X amount a year to keep giving me security updates for 3 more years. And Microsoft will just be like, yeah, please give me your money, you fool. And they will continue to update, no questions asked, as long as you pay for it. I don't know why. I don't know who is going to do this. I think this is insane for consumers to even consider. Just upgrade to Windows 11. It's free. It's literally free. It's a free update. It's still free, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is still free. I don't know why you'd pay. Microsoft didn't announce pricing for this. Historically, for enterprises, it has been very expensive. I don't know if it'll be very expensive for end users. I mean, it can't be, right? If Microsoft wanted to utilize this to its absolute best, they would tie this into Microsoft 365 and they just say, hey, if you're an end user and you subscribe to Microsoft 365, you get enrolled into the ESU program automatically, and that would maybe drive sales of Microsoft 365 as well. I don't know, but no pricing has been announced for this, but I'm sure we'll learn more in 2024 as we lead up to the end of support date in October 2025. Dan, any thoughts on this?
I mean, so I understand the Windows 10 argument for like enterprise, and what I mean here specifically are things like hospitals, and sometimes any really big network or company that has just thousands of computers. I mentioned this when I worked in a hospital as a sleep tech. We ran old versions of Windows because the proprietary software we ran on it, and the primary purpose of running that computer in the first place, it worked. Like there was nothing wrong with it. There was not going to be necessarily a value add outside of improved security, which is important, of course, but it wasn't going to make the lab studies any better. But it would have cost a ton of money to go not only update the software, but now you get into, is the computer updated enough, right, in terms of hardware, because of the hardware requirements. So now do we have to go buy tens, hundreds, thousands of new computers? So I get the argument why companies are sticking with older versions of Windows. It makes total sense. And Microsoft being lenient here and extending it, I think, is good. As far as consumers, yeah, I mean, it's a weird, I don't know who, outside of, I guess, if you're on, older hardware, that kind of thing, and just refuse to upgrade. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird choice. But this is the problem you brought up with going with a Windows 12, right? That introduces more complexity in terms of updating versus just, these kind of cumulative patches, or which are pretty massive, obviously, but for all intents and purposes, they are a brand new operating system. They just don't have the name. It's less splashy. It's OEMs would probably prefer to ship a laptop in like Windows 12, get that logo on there kind of thing for the box. But again, I think for enterprise this is a bigger deal.
So that's that. So there's not really much more to it. I think Microsoft also announced that they give enterprises the opportunity to turn old Windows 10 hardware into Windows 365 PCs, and what that essentially means is the PC will boot, but then it will just sort of load up a cloud PC straight away. It won't take you to the Windows desktop. And for PCs, for enterprises that do choose to do that, Microsoft will enroll them into the ESU program for free, so the Windows 10 platform underneath will still be secure for 3 additional years. And that's a good way to sort of save on e-waste, right? You can recycle these older sort of pieces of hardware as Windows 365 PCs running Windows 11 in the cloud. That's sort of what Microsoft is sort of going for there, which is pretty cool. Right, before we move on, do need to take a quick second to thank this week's sponsor, Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed's data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because it leverages over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Our listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/WCP. Go to Indeed.com/WCP right now to support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. And now it's time for Windows 11 news, as is always the case. Usually this is top of the show. We put it at the bottom today because why not? Not too much happened this week in the world of insider builds. There's some minor stuff in the dev and canary builds. We'll go through that now. We'll start with the dev channel build. So Windows 365 boot is getting some polish here and there. There's now you can, as a company, put your logo on the login screen and stuff, and so you can type your email and password in and connect straight to a cloud PC, which is kind of nice. Let's see here. We've also got the widgets board. So this is tied into the EEA stuff. We talked about this a couple of weeks back. When Microsoft announced that you'd be able to turn off the newsfeed in the widgets board, they announced it as a European PCs only thing. However, that doesn't seem to be true, because this week they started rolling out that change to the widgets board in the Insider program, and it doesn't mention being exclusive to specific regions. So luckily, by the looks of things, everybody in any region will be able to go into the widgets board and turn off the MSN feed, and that feature is now rolling out in the Insider channels, which is pretty cool. They're also testing a new feature with Copilot, which allows them to, air quotes, undock it. Now, this is something me and you've talked about, Dan, where you didn't like how Copilot pushes things out the way, sort of when you open it and stuff. Right. So they're adding a button to it which stops it from doing that. It still flies out from the side, but it will be treated like an overlay. So it will quite literally just sort of overlay what's ever on your screen. And it will stay open there, and you can still do what you're doing, but it won't push app windows out the way anymore, which is, I think, your number one complaint that you had with it.
Yeah, I think I'll probably, switch to that. I'll be curious about my workflow, but the way I have my screen set up right now, that will probably work for me.
Yeah. So there you go. It's an option. You can either have it as it pushes things out the way, or you can have it as an overlay. That is just a toggle that they're putting into the thing. The Windows Share window now supports sharing with WhatsApp under the Share Using section, which is kind of cool. They're actually building a new share interface, and it doesn't work for me. I have it on all my PCs, and every time I try to use it, it crashes. So good news there. I'm pretty sure they're building Android Nearby Share into this, which is going to be super handy. Let's see here, what else? Just general live quality of life stuff here. Notepad is getting a big update. Big update. One of the things that they're adding to the context menu is the ability to edit in Notepad, like a shortcut for jumping straight into Notepad, which is nice. And then in the app itself, it's getting a character count, which is something apparently it's been missing for a while, but it's now finally getting it. The Microsoft Store is also getting an update. Just UI improvements, really. So one thing they're adding is the ability to sort of press install on a little thumbnail versus having to click into an app page to press install, which is kind of cool. And there's a new feature that they're working on called Instant Games, which are, actually, technically there's a category called Arcade, but if you click on it, in there are instant games. And what these are games that you don't need to download. You just click on them and you click play, and they're just there to play. They're very basic games. They're sort of like Candy Crush style games, to be honest. I don't know who's playing these, but I guess some people are.
It sounds a lot like what Apple does with its Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
Although that's a subscription thing, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of sounds like a similar platform that they want to offer.
Right, for the Canary channel, not too much is different here. They're testing a new quick settings flyout, which isn't technically new. They were testing it a few months ago. I think they pulled it, but it's back in the build now, and it's now rolling out more broadly to everybody. The only real difference with it is that instead of there being a dedicated edit mode for adding and removing settings, it's now just all there, and it's paginated, so you can scroll up and down between pages, and you can see all of the settings in there at once, and you can just drag them around to customize it and stuff, which is kind of cool. The other thing is it's more performant. So right now, maybe you've noticed this, but if you boot up a PC and then you go straight to the quick settings panel, there's always a delay. It doesn't just show up. There's always it takes a beat or two to just appear for some reason, but with this new version, apparently that's fixed, or at least not as bad. Task Manager now has Mika material, which essentially just means it has a slightly translucent background with a blur effect, which is super nice. And that's pretty much it, I think, for the Insider builds this week. Not too much going on in the world of Windows. Usually the case this time of year, right? They usually sort of wind down before Christmas. But that's basically everything I've got for the week, Dan. Are there any other things you want to talk about?
Yeah, no. I spent some of my week traveling. I gotta do that next week too. It looks like technically it was kind of a slow week, but yet it wasn't. It was actually, we had some of the most traffic this week we've had in our history. But a lot of it was games related. So make sure you turn to the Xbox 2 podcast, which just corded for all that. But there was the Games Awards last night, which drew a lot of traffic. Obviously, it's major games winning awards. And there was also some big announcements that came out during that as well, which is kind of cool that we're focused on Xbox and PC. So that was kind of neat. I don't really want to summarize it mostly because I haven't followed it too closely, but it's doing really well. There's also, I should mention, a couple of deals still going on that we should kind of talk about. One, Xbox fridges. So
Yeah.
this came out as a funny thing where, the Xbox Series X was, when it first came out, people were joking around, and we actually led that meme, if I recall. I
That's
believe it
right.
was Matt who did the
Hmm.
started it. He made a render of it looking like a giant refrigerator in someone's home. And so it became a joke that, yeah, it looks like a refrigerator. And it got so popular, Microsoft said, screw it. And they made two. They made one that was actually a real full-sized refrigerator. And they made a couple of those. And
Yeah.
that went to some major influencers like iJustine. Um, and then they brought to market a mini one that everybody could buy. And it went on sale last year. It was one of our top referrals that we got, that people were going clicking through and buying it basically because it was so interesting. Uh, then they came out with like, let's see. Oh yeah, so that one held 12 cans and had a USB outlet on it so you can like charge your phone. Then they came out with an 8-can one, so it was even smaller. And this one's on sale right now at Walmart. If you're in the US, it's $40. Like, it's half its price, right? It's like, I don't know how you don't buy that thing. I know so many people have gotten it because it's at $40 a cheap. The next size up is like $98. So we thought that was the end of it. And then just this week, a new version came out that's even bigger now. So now there's a large, a medium, and a small. The new large version is $198, so it's definitely more expensive, but it's more of your traditional. I imagine if you went to college and lived in a dorm,
Yeah.
we all had those mini fridges. It's more like that size. So a more of a true mini fridge, whereas the others are like really, really mini. So that is now available through Walmart. They're selling them here in the United States. Uh, if you're an Xbox fan, I don't see how you don't get it. I mean, the thing lights up too. Like the little button lights up, and I mean, it's really cleverly done. It's green on the inside. It's really kind of cool. It's also mentioned, speaking of Xbox, if you're been looking for Verizon coverage, if you want their FiOS or 5G coverage at your house, and I don't get FiOS at my house, which is unfortunate. But if you sign up, you get it for like $65 a month, which is cheaper than what I pay for my cable. But you also get a free Xbox Series S, 512 gigabytes, and a $100 Verizon gift card, and then a $200 Amazon gift card. So again, I don't know why you would not sign up for this deal if you are looking to switch your internet provider. Um, that sounds pretty awesome to me. So we have those on the front page of Windows Central if you want to go check those out now. But they seem like pretty good things. We'll cover some more next week as Christmas, of course, is rapidly approaching. Other than that, I guess we could switch quickly to the thing of the week. I have two movies, of course. Um, One was I saw the new Godzilla film, which I had been very, very excited about, Godzilla Minus One. It has a 97% Rotten Tomatoes score from critics and 98% from regular moviegoers. So universal agreement that this is one of the, if not the best Godzilla film ever made. And I know some people probably rolling their eyes, like, oh, is it a giant guy in a green suit, monster rubber suit stomping around? It's like, no, this is CGI. It's some of the best CGI I've ever seen in any movie, period. Uh, I'm talking like Hollywood movies too, right? It's looks outstanding. But the story that they did for this, it resets. So you don't need to see all the other Godzilla films. This is basically starting off fresh again. And it goes back to World War II right after it. It's post-war Japan, where the reason they call it minus one, is because post-war Japan is all wrecked and the country's recovering. The people are dealing with the fact that they did horrible stuff, and like what happened to them and all this as a culture that led them to do the things that transpired. And so the country was considered to be at a reset at zero basically. And then Godzilla comes along and ruins everything even more. So now it's minus one. So that's where the title comes from, which I thought was kind of cool. But the story it's such a human story. Like you could, if you just took the Godzilla parts out of this, it's a really good post World War II story in Japan about, um, a soldier who dealt with a lot and feels a lot of guilt, like survivor's guilt, basically, and the struggles that people are dealing with and trying to rebuild their country. And in of itself, it would have been just a great, international independent film that you would see. But you throw in the Godzilla bits now, and it adds like this other element. And he's actually terrifying in this one. Like when he goes and stomps through one of the cities and he unleashes his atomic breath. It's like, I mean, spoiler alert, it's not just like his breath destroys things. It's an atomic bomb. It like literally sets off an atomic explosion, which I would assume Japan probably didn't need more of. Um, but it was such a good movie. Like it's one of those movies you watch and you're like, that shouldn't have been that good, but it was. And the director he's well known in Japan. He's a VFX artist, and um, so he oversees a lot of doing visual effects in movies. But he did oversaw the visual effects. He wrote this and directed it, which is pretty crazy. What's more crazy is if you go see it, I really encourage you to go see it. It's just there are moments where you're going to tear up. If you don't tear up in this, like you're just dead inside. Um, but like what's crazy when you watch it, it was made for $15 million, which is so insane to me because it feels like it blows away any Hollywood version of Godzilla movie ever made, period. It blows away almost any destruction movie, kaiju movie we've ever made as well. But they made it for 15 million. To put that in perspective, the last Godzilla versus Kong, which I thought was terrible, um, so this movie was made for less than 1/10 of that movie's budget. So I mean, it's just like they told a really compelling story, and they did it on such a tight budget. It's breaking all these records worldwide. Critics are loving it. I'm going to go see it again. I'm going to try to go see it again, but I recommend that a lot. Other than that, I also saw finally THX 1138, George Lucas's first major film. Started off as a student film and then grew into a first major picture that was oversaw by Francis Ford Coppola. And it was restored and re-edited by Lucas in 2014, I want to say. And so it's available for streaming. You can get it for like $3.99 for a rent. It's not an amazing story. It's very fits into the Logan's Run, kind of all this dystopian future kind of thing. So it's not like a deep, complicated story, but the way it's done is kind of cool. But what's really more interesting about the movie is visually, it's incredibly done. Like the cinematography that's done and how they did shots and how they did some stunts kind of blew my mind. In fact, there's like a motorcycle stunt towards the end of the film where this guy goes flying off the motorcycle, and I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, that was like a real guy. Like, how did they do that stunt? That didn't look like it went well. And then I looked it up on Wikipedia, and sure enough, it was like this famous stunt guy did it, and it didn't go to plan, but he was fine. Like he flew off the motorcycle, he hit like some kind of barrier thing, landed on his back, and then slid into a car. And it was like, I'm like, I don't think that was supposed to happen, and it wasn't. And then, but the only thing he was mad about was then people on the crew rushed into the scene to help him, and he was worried that they ruined the shot, but they didn't. And I was curious where they did a lot of the cinematography, where they did a lot of location shootings, and you can find that on Wikipedia. A lot of it, most of it was done in Los Angeles through unfinished BARD stations. So basically, they're transit tunnel systems. So these were systems that weren't finished yet, but they did a lot of shooting in them, and it was just really wild how they got these shots. It was totally fascinating from that perspective, and it's just such a the movie kind of sticks with you. Like I thought it was really, really fantastic. So I recommend going and rent that, especially if you like sci-fi dystopian stuff. Zach, what's up for you?
I did not have a follow up. This this week I've been watching The Crown season 6 or series 6,
Ah,
which has started. I think part 2 is out this week or next week. They did the thing where they split the series in two. I don't know why they do that, but they did it for this. And this is the last season of The Crown. I believe the series sort of ends in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is, it's covering all the main beats that the royal family sort of went through. And so, yeah, like the current season is all about Diana and her untimely death. So yeah, if you're interested in that, give it a watch. I've watched all the seasons. I've sort of started watching it like in the background. One of the things I just put on, and as the show's sort of gone on, I've become more invested in in the storylines and stuff. Obviously, it's all very fictionalized. It isn't a documentary. It's a drama that has a loose tie to real world events, and so I think it's very entertaining.
I was going to make a joke emasculating you, but I won't do that.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I as an American, I'd be like, "Oh, did you drink your tea too?" But yeah,
I
you
did drink my. Actually, yes, many
Of course
cups
you
of
did.
tea.
By the way, like as someone who, as the American on my team, like 80% of our staff is British. Um,
Right.
the thing about them drinking tea all the time is totally true.
Oh yeah.
They all love it, and it's like totally. I just don't
You know
understand.
when you Americans decide to have a glass of water, we decide to have a
Yeah,
cup of tea. That's the.
yeah. I still just think of the joke by Gilbert Gottfried, where he's like, "Waiter, there's a bag of dirt urinating in my hot water," which is exactly what it looks like. It seems like to me. Yeah, we're obviously a coffee culture here, but
Yeah.
um, so I support you, tea people.
Thank you.
So anyway, well, that does it for the podcast. We'll go and do some Q&A with the audience if they have any questions. Of course, we do record this live every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. You can go rewatch it there or just listen to the audio version. We may be switching up the record time. We still got to figure that out for the new year, but
Yeah.
that's it for now. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Also on Threads at the same address. And the same goes for Zach at ZACBOWDEN, both on Twitter and Threads. As always, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Speaking of that time, Dan, are we cool to just do it on Thursdays at what time do we normally do it now? What time did we start today? 1 p.m. or 12 p.m.?
1 p.m.
Thursdays 1 p.m. Would that work for you going forward?
Except for next week.
Sure, but normally.
Yeah, probably.
Or would
should
12
be,
be
okay.
better for you? 12 p.m.
I'll have to go through my calendars and look what appointments I have.
But I think Thursday will be the new day for the live stream going forward. Because
yeah.
Fridays is annoying because it's the end of the week and it's a big ask for me because it's Friday night. And so it's like,
right.
I want to be done.
Yeah, 12 should be
12 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays, starting in the new year. So we'll we'll be all over the place until the rest of the year, until the new year starts, and then it will go on Thursdays. All right. Cool. Well, if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to put them in there now. We'll hang around for a little bit and do our best to provide some answers. Techosaurus Rex has been asking, will they test the germanium RTM with insiders before OEMs get it like nickel, or will it be like with cobalt where OEMs got it before insiders? I don't know. I think because Hudson Valley won't be done in April anyway, I don't think it matters. I think you'll be able to get the RTM build without waiting. I think you'll get it before OEMs or around the same time as OEMs. That actually sort of leads into a question: when will Hudson Valley be announced? When will they actually announce the feature set for the next version of Windows? Will they keep it a secret? Will they hold an event? Will they sort of just roll it out to insiders as if it's nothing? Because they've done all three in the past. Like, in the Windows 10 era, there weren't many Windows 10 events, and if there was an event, usually the event was recapping stuff that insiders had been testing for the last year, which was never fun or exciting. Whereas the Windows 11 event in 2021 was a big deal because it was ideally hiding things that nobody had seen before, even though we did get a leak. But yeah, I don't know. I assume if they're going to announce Hudson Valley, they'll announce it in April or May. And then they'll start testing it over the summer. And maybe some of the features that they test will require that new hardware that starts shipping. Could you explain in a concise way why Microsoft fails to make up their mind regarding what they want their OS to look and feel like? I'm tired of relying on each leadership's appetites and take. Well, that's primarily the reason. Each leader has a different vision of what the product should be. I don't know how Google and Apple stay so consistent, to be honest with you. It's almost as if Microsoft needs like a leadership team that is their only goal is to build to be like a guideline for what the company looks like or what their products are supposed to look like. And so whenever they stray from it, that team can be like, oh, this looks nothing like what we follow, do what we do. But they don't have that. So we do have these eras where Windows will go through being obsessed with touch, and then there'll be another era where it's obsessed with being updated every 4 weeks, and then we'll go through an era where it's like, no, we'll do it annually, and we want things to look this way and stuff. And then we go for a phase where they just don't care about the UI at all. Like, we've had it. In the last decade, we've had it all.
I think it's fair to point out too that a lot of that is driven by the time, the zeitgeist at the time. Windows 8 and touch wasn't like some guy came along and was like, we should do touch and all that. It was because of the iPad. It was because of tablets, because tablets were being argued as the future of computing. And I mean, I don't have to go through this. Everybody remembers the stories about iPads are going to replace PCs. And so that's what Microsoft was trying to counter with Windows 8. Turns out that wasn't the case. Then again, the pandemic came along and changed again the use of computers, because all of a sudden people had to work from home, and also now focusing on video and audio and having technologies that made conference working much better became front and center, and still is. Some of it has been scaled back, of course, but there's a lot more work from home today than there were previous years ago. So again, refocusing on Windows 11 came around that, as well as doubling down on Teams. What they're doing with the AI stuff now, again, is just merely a reaction to a big, innovation in AI that's happened over the last year, and they're now mixing it into their operating system. So this stuff changes. You can sometimes, and Zach knows this too, they have internal presentations where they imagine something is in 5 years and 10 years and where they would like to go, what the vision, your job, if you're overseeing Windows, is to be like, here's our vision of where we see Windows in 5 years. And it's really far thinking out stuff, but that kind of guessing is very difficult to do, because then things like the pandemic happen and you're like, no one foresaw that. So how was that going to change the PC market? Well, it did. The iPad, when it came out, it was cool. I don't think anyone predicted that it was going to upend the PC market. And it did, right up until it didn't, right? Because everybody was so certain that, oh, that's the end of laptops and PCs as we know it. It's going to be just iPads, and that's Apple. And then that didn't happen. In fact, iPad sales now are declining, right? So a lot of these changes you see in different focuses on things are literally reactions to the ongoing market, as well as technological innovations. And I think that's a smart approach to how this stuff works. It may seem chaotic if you follow every update and every leak that Zach comes out with, but it's a moving target. That's what the industry is. So
yeah.
Is Surface Laptop Studio 2 being marketed towards businesses and professionals? The base model is not sold at retail stores such as Best Buy. I would say the majority of, outside of Surface Pro, maybe Surface Laptop, the majority of Surface stuff is aimed at businesses and professionals. The Laptop Studio 2, I liked it. It's not perfect. And I think it could really benefit from Intel's new processors coming out and everything. I think it's not doing well for them as both 1 and 2.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see people talking about it. I don't see it being used. There's no, I don't know. It's not. I saw more with Surface Laptop and definitely Surface Pro.
Yeah.
Interest, but when it comes to Laptop Studio 2, I feel like even though the Laptop Studio 2 addresses almost all the major concerns of the first one, it feels like it's kind of falling flat. And I find that really interesting. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but I bet you those sales aren't good. That's just my gut feeling on that. So I don't know if they'll do a third one because of that. Danielle, are you still rocking the Aura Ring? Have they been making it better with firmware updates? Yes, I still wear my Aura Ring. I have the black stealth one. I love it. It's great. It has been improving with firmware updates. They now have a thing that measures your stress and gives you a stress report during the day, which is kind of cool. I've had no problems with it. I did have, I bought the Gen 3 right out the gate, and that one had some early issues with battery failing. And so my battery did fail, but Aura replaced it. No problem. They just sent me a new one, got it within a couple days. And it's been great since. I've had no problems with it, no complaints. Yeah, I'm sticking with it. I'm fascinated by Whoop. I talked about Whoop. I'll be honest though, like so I go to the gym 5, 6 days a week, like so, and I go there for like 2 hours. So I'm pretty serious about like weightlifting and everything. The thing is, I feel that it's overkill almost for most people, unless you're a professional athlete. All I know is there's like a lot of pro bodybuilders don't use Whoop. Like, if you're lifting and you're trying to build muscle mass, you don't need a device on your wrist to kind of tell you how you're doing. I do agree with some of the basic functionality. Like, I like the idea of like my Aura ring when I go to sleep at night gives me, the recover report in the morning on how I feel and whether or not I should push hard. I think that's important. I think the rest of the data, I don't know who these people are that are wearing it and paying all that money for it because I am not seeing you on like NBC's Olympics and I'm not seeing you as a professional sports athlete. But if you're just like a normal person going to the gym and trying to be fit, I feel like Whoop is just way overkill for what most people do. I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind if I had one. I just don't see why I would want to pay for one. Whereas and granted, I would say with Aura, you now have to pay for it too. So that argument is a little bit diminished. I don't because I had Gen 2 and was paying, I had Gen 2. And if you bought Gen 3, you were grandfathered in. So I'm grandfathered in, so I don't have to pay anything. So I guess that argument goes away a little bit. But I think Whoop is still more expensive. So
All right, with that, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter or Threads. We'll get updates when we go live. But until then, we shall see you next time. Bye bye.